Thomas, you just wrapped up a really interesting session on the impact of geopolitical events on the services sector and contracting. And so I'd like to hear from you, what is that one key takeaway that you'd like somebody to walk out of that session and say, okay, this sticks with me?
Sure. So I think the first part of the discussion around the fact that OCTG, which sort of falls under the Section 232 tariffs around steel, aluminum, that affects U.S. producers quite a bit. So roughly 10 to 15% of your total AFE cost is OCTG. So price increases there is definitely a pain point for operators. And this is coming at a time when gas prices have come down a bit, oil prices have come down a bit. Outlook of 26 is a lot more murky than it was 3 months ago. Rig counts have already we've dropped like 50 rigs, 30, 40 fleets have come off. So across most categories, you've seen price deflation, whereas on the OCTG front, you're actually seeing inflation. So I thought that was an interesting topic. That was a key takeaway for me. So you have the domestic mills wanting to pass through these tariffs to E&Ps, and the E&Ps actually wanting to push back on that, given the turmoil that's happening in the space in general. So that sort of battle between the two is an interesting one. So for the most part, our view, I think, would be you'll still see increases being pushed through towards the end of the year. And it remains to be seen whether that bleeds into 26. I think everyone agrees that it's not going to come down. It's going to sort of plateau. So that was, I think, one interesting takeaway for folks here in the U.S.
Yeah, and for those that aren't as familiar maybe with the oil field, OCTG, you're talking oil field country tubular goods. This is basically metal pipes.
Yes.
And you're saying that's about 10 or 15% of the cost of drilling a well.
Drilling and completing a well, yes.
Insignificance at all. Now, obviously, you're not always able to touch on everything you'd like to on stage. What was maybe something that you didn't get a chance to explore in as much detail as you would have liked?
I think there's a few things that I would love to touch on a little bit more, which is, for the most part, the U.S. is in production maintenance mode now, right? So after COVID, we've had production increases year over year. And for the first time, I think in 26 now, you'll actually see a production decline because of the fact that the price environment's not that great. Oil companies are worried about inventory, so they want to preserve that. So I'd love to maybe spend a little bit of more time there. So in a sense, I would think U.S. being in maintenance mode is a pretty interesting trend, which sort of is important for folks to explore a little bit more. And even though we hear news about all companies doing 25% cost reductions across the board, it feels like a downturn. It feels like a downturn, but it's no one's sort of feeling that in the sense because of the fact that it's been a slow kill. Yeah, right? So it doesn't feel like a 2020, it doesn't feel like a 2015 when prices just drop, boom, everyone's on the same page, this is a downturn. This was more, 2023 is worse than 22. 24 was worse than 23. 25 is worse than 24. And now 26 is worse than 25. So when you compound all of this together, we are sort of in a downturn. And that's what the numbers are showing us too.
Yeah, that kind of slow, silent, maybe quiet downturn. I want to talk about some of those numbers that you mentioned.
Sure.
I mean, when you say cost inflation or price inflation and trying to push that into a down market, I mean, what are we talking here in terms of increases that these mills are trying to push through?
So in the beginning part of the year, I think it was a lot higher. Like you're looking at maybe 15 to 25% from sort of Q4 of last year. That was the first part of this year. So now when the tariffs actually went up from 25% to 50% on sort of steel and aluminum, you still have sort of that being pushed through. So that roughly would be, from an operator standpoint, you're looking at maybe 5 to 7% increases now. But overall well costs are still down. So when you're looking at how much deflation operators have seen, because day rates are lower, proppant prices are lower, fleet pressure pumping prices are lower, wireline, cold tubing, any category that you pick, you are down. So on average, I would say from late last year, you're likely down 10, 15% on your total well cost now. And in 26, we sort of see that plateauing. So leading edge pricing now likely would be the norm next year, but because of the fact that we had a strong Q1, this was prior to Liberation Day, year over year is still going to be down because Q1 of 25 was higher than Q1 of 26.
So you mentioned specifically around the steel tariffs. Are those the big ones? I mean, is that the one that is being that's most impactful, I guess, for the companies that we're talking about, or are there others that are having kind of equal effect?
No, I think that's the most pain. That's the biggest pain point for operators. There are a few investigations that are going on too. So I think that's what a lot of E&Ps are focused on, because I think they're happy with some of the cost decreases they've seen in other categories, but OCTG does seem to be one that's a pain point in a down market.
Yeah, and driven by those steel tariffs.
Yeah.
Well, Thomas, thank you so much for joining us on the Debrief. It's been really nice to speak with you, and I hope we get to talk again at the summit next year.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.